There was a time when Plants vs. Zombies wasn't just a mobile game, it was a phenomenon. A weird, colorful, perfectly balanced tower defense title that somehow managed to capture the attention of millions. A game so simple yet so cleverly designed that it felt inevitable. But today, the name Plants vs. Zombies doesn't carry the same spark. It doesn't even carry the same respect. What was once a beloved classic is now another relic of EA's mobile money machine, a hollowed-out brand chasing engagement instead of creativity. This is the story of how one of gaming's most charming franchises fell apart, not in a single explosion, but through years of slow corporate decay. When Plants vs. Zombies launched in 2009, PopCap Games had already built a reputation for casual brilliance. They made Bejeweled. They made Peggle. But Plants vs. Zombies was different. It had personality, the kind that didn't feel forced or market-tested. It was the type of game that could make a sunflower smiling feel cooler than shooting a gun. It was simple, satisfying, and strangely emotional. Every plant had a purpose. Every level had rhythm. And despite its cartoony design, it felt like something made by real people. People who cared about fun, not metrics. Players weren't bombarded with ads or offers. There were no battle passes, no reward timers, just gameplay. PopCap didn't need to sell you dopamine, the game was dopamine. For a brief moment, Plants vs. Zombies represented something rare, creativity in its purest, most human form. But that's exactly what made it valuable. By 2011, PopCap was a small studio sitting on gold. EA was watching. The same EA that had already bought and buried multiple promising studios, Pandemic, Westwood, and Origin. The same EA that could smell profit like a shark smells blood. So when EA offered to buy PopCap for over $650 million, the deal was too good to refuse. And on paper, it sounded promising. EA had the money, the reach, the publishing power to turn Plants vs. Zombies into a global powerhouse. But the second EA walked in, Plants vs. Zombies stopped being a game and started being a product. The first Plants vs. Zombies had a soul. Plants vs. Zombies 2 had a store. Released in 2013, It's About Time looked like a worthy sequel. Bigger worlds, new plants, new mechanics, all the right buzzwords. But under the surface, it wasn't PopCap anymore. It was EA. The gameplay wasn't designed to challenge you, it was designed to slow you. Every power-up, every world, every difficulty spike was engineered to make one idea more appealing: spending money. The original game rewarded time and creativity. The sequel rewarded transactions. And players noticed. The charm that made the first game magical, the relaxed pacing, the silly humor, the feeling of discovery, had been replaced by timers, ads, and microtransactions. EA had taken one of the most wholesome franchises in gaming and turned it into a slot machine wearing a sunflower costume. Ironically, the gameplay was still good. That's what made it sad. Buried beneath layers of monetization was a genuinely clever sequel. But you had to dig through so much greed to find it. PopCap wasn't dead yet, though. Behind the scenes, the studio tried to branch out. If they couldn't protect Plants vs. Zombies as a tower defense series, maybe they could reinvent it. In 2014, they released Plants vs. Zombies: Garden Warfare. It was bizarre, a third-person shooter based on a casual strategy game. It shouldn't have worked. But somehow, it did. Players loved it. It was chaotic, charming, and refreshingly lighthearted. A shooter where your goal wasn't to dominate, but to laugh. For a brief moment, Plants vs. Zombies was reborn. Then EA realized people were playing it for fun instead of profit. By the time Garden Warfare 2 came out in 2016, the cracks were already showing. The charm was there, but the monetization was creeping in. Loot packs, cosmetics, grind mechanics, all perfectly tuned to drain your patience just enough to make you spend. Still, fans stuck around. They wanted to believe there was hope. But that hope would be short-lived. Because while Garden Warfare was succeeding, EA was quietly planning the next step. A game that would completely lose sight of what Plants vs. Zombies even was. Plants vs. Zombies Heroes, released in 2016, was the beginning of the end. It was a card battler. Not tower defense, not a shooter, a mobile card game. The idea was creative, maybe even interesting, but it wasn't Plants vs. Zombies. It felt like a desperate identity crisis, a franchise trying to fit into whatever genre was trending that month. The game wasn't bad, but it wasn't special. It wasn't PopCap. It was EA in costume. By this point, PopCap's original team had largely moved on. The same people who once poured their hearts into hand-animating pea shooters were gone, replaced by executives measuring daily active users. The art was still colorful, the music still catchy, but something deeper was missing: the sincerity. And without sincerity, even a smiling sunflower feels cold. Then came Battle for Neighborville. After years of silence, EA tried to reignite the brand in 2019 with a new third-person shooter. Players expected something massive, a full evolution of garden warfare. Instead, they got an empty shell. No content, no direction, and none of the charm. Just another game trying to survive off nostalgia. Even the fans who defended Garden Warfare 2 couldn't find much to love. The humor felt tired, the gameplay uninspired, and the grind unbearable. It was the gaming equivalent of hearing your favorite band reunite for a tour, only to realize they're not playing your songs, just their new ones nobody asked for. And once again, EA buried the failure in silence. By 2020, the brand was a shadow. But there was still one last attempt: Plants vs. Zombies 3. It was supposed to be a triumphant return, a modernized version of the original formula. Fans were cautiously optimistic. Maybe, just maybe, they'd learned their lesson. But as soon as players saw the gameplay, they knew something was wrong. The art style looked plastic. The perspective was changed. The soul was gone. Sunflowers no longer felt like friends. They felt like assets. The backlash was instant. And for once, EA backed down. The game was quietly pulled for rework. A year later, it returned. Slightly improved, slightly less hated, but still missing that magic. EA had managed to remake Plants vs. Zombies without understanding why anyone loved it in the first place. Over a decade after the original release, Plants vs. Zombies had gone through every stage of corporate evolution, from indie masterpiece to mobile cash grab, from clever reinvention to brand confusion, from creative freedom to controlled monetization. And at every step, something was lost. What made Plants vs. Zombies beautiful was that it was never trying to be anything else. It wasn't trying to keep you addicted, it just wanted to entertain you. But in EA's hands, the goal shifted. It was no longer about joy or creativity, it was about metrics, retention, engagement, and microtransactions. To EA, Plants vs. Zombies wasn't a game, it was a funnel. And when you treat art like a funnel, you kill the art. In the end, the decline of Plants vs. Zombies wasn't about one game failing, it was about a philosophy failing. When art becomes data, when fun becomes user retention, when design becomes monetization, something dies. PopCap built something beautiful. EA optimized it to death. And maybe that's the saddest part, because Plants vs. Zombies didn't fall because people stopped loving it. It fell because the people in charge stopped understanding why they loved it. What began as a celebration of creativity ended as a case study in greed. A reminder that even the happiest games can have the darkest endings.